right. All right, hello everyone. How are you guys? My name is Vera and I'm a cancer survivor and I'm very grateful to speak to you guys today. How do I begin this story? It's a loaded question sometimes, but so I was diagnosed in 2019 and again, I was like the pinnacle of health, really. I was a yoga teacher. I still am a yoga teacher. When I was 24, I went to college. I did a lot of crazy stuff in high school. Anybody here do a lot of crazy stuff in high school? Okay. Really I was pretty wild. And then I went to college and I got into, drugs and alcohol and all that. I also had an eating disorder. I was bulimic for starting at 16 years old. And then I moved to Boston because I wanted to get out of the craziness of New York City, because I went to high school in New York City and then I went to college upstate New York. And when I moved to Boston, I sort of hit like a rock bottom. So I was 24 and I just felt like, I was like, who am I? I was depressed, I was chubbier. I was never obese or anything like that because I was bulimic, but I had hit like an edge to my life where I just essentially wanted to die. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was very confused. I loved college. It was like, I was like the life of the college. And then college was over and that was it. And it's like, goodbye. So I hit an edge or a real rock bottom, and at that time when I was 24, I was lost. I was looking around trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and I ended up meeting someone who had gotten help in a 12-step program. Has anybody ever heard of a 12-step program? Right, yeah, so a 12-step program is for addiction. So I went into a 12-step program when I was 24 for food addiction. So I eliminated processed flour and sugar from my diet because sugar is a drug. In fact, cancer feeds on sugar, so I'll talk about that in a minute. I eliminated alcohol. I eliminated anything mood altering, including caffeine. And I started meditating every day. And I got help. Essentially, I got help. There are free meetings. I went to 4 a week. When I was 24, I didn't have a car. It was Boston. It was freaking cold, and I was miserable. And I was like, my life is over. And all my friends were like, Vera's in the cult. And I was like, I'm not in the cult. I know this is better for me. And I picked up a higher power. So a higher power, you can call it God, the universe, your cat, as long as it's something greater than yourself and not you. But for so much of my life, I had been operating where it was just me all the time. I was just thinking about myself all the time. So I started to just really get out of myself and of course have this discipline around my food. And in return, I started to have spiritual awakenings. So if you've ever had a spiritual awakening, maybe not yet, but you might, it's a profound experience and it takes you on another level of awareness. And I was drawn to a career path that was a little more akin to that kind of growth, and to me, being a yoga teacher was helping others achieve that as well. So I actually became a yoga teacher, and I felt, okay, I'm also very passionate about academia, and I probably want to be a teacher. So I ended up doing a master's program at Harvard in education, and I was a teacher for many years. I taught in high schools, and I taught media education to help children make media and then also understand their own relation to media. Like, why do I want to pick up my phone every 5 minutes? Why does dopamine happen when I look at like my Instagram? I was just fascinated by all that. So that was what I did until I stopped doing it when I had my second child. And then at that point, I went into holistic health. So health. I had suffered with psoriasis and eczema. Have you guys ever heard of those? Yeah. So I had psoriasis and eczema for a while, and probably due to stress and other symptoms, because that's inflammation in the body. And I felt like I really wanted to learn more about health and wellness, and I wanted to teach about health and wellness because I was getting, in turn, very healthy. So this is around the time when I was like 32, and I had my second child. And so I ended up leaving education, as in I'm actually not leaving education because look what I'm doing right now, but I left teaching in a public school, and I ended up working for a essential oil company that works in holistic health, because I felt like Western medicine only took me so far, because I'd go to these doctors and I'd be like, I have this and I have that, and I don't know why I have this kind of inflammation. I didn't even have that word at the time. And they were like, here's a steroid, bye, goodbye. It wasn't like, what's your stress level? And are you, it wasn't like looking at the whole picture. It was just looking at one direction. So I felt like I wanted to learn more. So that's how I got into essential oils and learning about plants and plant medicine. And I was like, wow, this is great. I want to teach about this. So I left teaching, and then I started teaching about essential oils and holistic health. So, and I was doing yoga, a yoga teacher, and I had my 2 kids. So I was feeling great. I mean, I'm teaching about health, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm going on retreats, and I start like feeling a lump, and I'm just like, this is weird. It must be because I'm a blocked milk duct. So anybody know what that means? Okay, so I had a child and I breastfed, and sometimes the milk can get stuck, and then it can turn into like what feels like a lump. So I was like very dismissive about it, and I was like, oh, it totally is a blocked milk duct. And I even went to a doctor and I was like, can you just check this out? It's probably blocked milk duct, right? And they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. But then my mom is like, she's I'm Jewish. My mom is like your kind of typical Jewish mother, like always nagging me about something, like calling me and, did you do this? Did you do that? And she was like really on me about a mammogram. And I'm like, I'm not even 40 yet, like stop harassing me. But I think she felt some sort of energy, And I actually went back to the doctor, and I did request that. I did request a mammogram. So I did the mammogram, and I was like, this is I'm out, I'm done. But they called me back, and they said, we found something concerning, and I think as a cancer, someone who's walked through the cancer journey, that is like sometimes the hardest part, is like the waiting part between the biopsy and the determination, like that, and because your mind can go to crazy places. So I had to stay really grounded through that time of waiting. And that's where my foundation in meditation, in connection with other people, like through my 12-step program with friends, with family, really helped in that time. So I would make calls, and I was scared about what it could be. And then it's like your worst nightmare. It's like, it's cancer, and it's not only on one side, but it's on both sides. So it's bilateral cancer on both breasts. And then, they did the biopsy and that whole thing. And then, and so at that point, my husband was traveling in Saudi Arabia. So he was in Saudi Arabia, and I was in Boston, going through all the treatment and everything, of learning about it. And they just hand you like a book, and they're like, all right, learn about. And the book is like, it's like almost from like 1985, the way it's, and then the cancer center, I was at this cancer center at a hospital, a local hospital, and you walk in, and there was like this TV from like 1994, and it was like a drone of like, and it was pink, like it wasn't even video. It was a video, but it was like a piece of artwork on the video with this like drone. So that was the cancer center for the women, it's sort of forecasting like, oh my gosh, like what's going on here? But my doctors were perplexed, because like, they're like, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you're at a very healthy weight. Your stress is very, you're like, you don't have a lot of stress. Perhaps it could be genetic. And so that was the first time that it was even in my perception that it could be genetic. And the reason why they also noted this was because I'm Jewish, and my grandmother died of breast cancer, and my father died of pancreatic cancer. So that's a huge for cancer. is like, is it genetic, right? So there's a lot of factors, and we don't 100% know what the factors are all the time. It could be environmental, it could be stress related. Have any of you ever read Louise Hay? Louise Hay? She's the godmother of like trauma-informed cancer treatment. So basically saying that cancer is a manifestation of stress and trauma in the body. So definitely check out Louise Hay. She started Hay House, which is a very popular publisher for cancer books and cancer-related books. But in any event, I ended up doing a genetic test. And the genetic test, on the form, it asked me if I was Jewish. And I'd never, it's like asking me if I was Asian. Like, I'm not, I'd never been on a form that asked me if I was Jewish. It just seemed so. Basically, it turned out that I had a cancer that was very prominent in Jewish women and men sometimes. It's called the BRCA1. The BRCA1. Has anybody heard of it? Okay, yeah. So there's BRCA1, BRCA2. Angelina Jolie, not Jewish, maybe somewhere in her past, but Angelina Jolie was diagnosed with BRCA1. You okay there?
Yeah.
Was diagnosed with BRCA1, and she ended up getting a prophylactic. Do you guys know what that means? Prophylactic, which means she got her breast and ovaries removed without even getting cancer. So she didn't even have cancer. So now insurance actually covers, if you have that genetic cancer, that you will get possibly your ovaries and your breasts removed, because the risk is so much higher. So in that case, I was like, oh my gosh, I have this cancer, like what? And it made a lot of sense, because my grandmother died, my dad died, they did on a fairly earlier side, right? So, and I just happened to hit that cancer lottery, I guess, and I got it, and it was like, okay, now what, right? So now that's like a whole other step. It's like, I have this genetic cancer, now what do I do? And I really did not want to do chemo. I really did not want to do chemo, because what do you see in the movies, right? Like the woman's hair falls out, just like, she's like, it just seems so dreadful. It just seems so dreadful. I didn't want that to be my forecast. I also had really great hair. This is actually a hairpiece. So I attached a hair, we can talk about the hairpiece afterwards, but I attached a hairpiece to this because like my hair is growing back, but I had this like really curly long hair, and I like did not want to lose my hair. So I was like, I also didn't want to get sick, and so it took a lot of like, I also was working in a wellness community where some people just did not do chemo at all, and they went to Mexico and they did like frankincense infusions and turmeric infusions and light therapy, because that exists. Like if you have money and you want to not do chemo, you can go off to Tijuana or something and go to a cancer centers and do it all natural, and you don't have to basically put poison in the body. That's what chemo is. It's essentially a nuclear bomb going off in your body, and it kills the good and it kills the bad, right? But not everybody wants that. And I personally don't want that. So when you're ever going through chemo, hopefully you never have to go through chemo, but when they bring over the concoction, it has a freaking hazard sign on it. Like it's a nuclear bomb. So I was like, I don't want to do it. And so I had cancer doctors, and they were very like concerned, and they had intervention. I had an intervention, and people had to talk to me, and basically I agreed to do it. And that was huge for me. And there was a lot of feelings about that, but I did it. And I was like, you know what, if I'm gonna do it, someone told me about a cold cap. Have you guys ever heard about a cold cap? Right. So basically a cold cap freezes your hair follicle during the chemo. So what happens? You keep some of your hair, not all your hair. Like I was being prescribed the 100% hair fallout chemo. There's also chemo that your hair doesn't fall out, but the one that I had is called by the street name. There's a street name because it's like a drug. The Red Devil, right? It was called the Red Devil, and the Red Devil makes you really sick. It makes you pee red, and it makes your hair fall out. And I was like, all right, well, if I'm gonna meet the devil, I might as well have a cold cap in hell. And so I got the cold cap. And for those who go on the cancer journey, cold caps are very expensive. So there's actually organizations that help women get cold caps if they need it. It's called Hair to Stay, and they're based out of San Francisco. So I got a little bit of a support, and I got the cold cap, and I started doing the chemo. And you know, the chemo is intense, but this is what I tell people: if you start out healthy going into cancer treatment, you're going to do really well. But if you start out unhealthy with a negative mindset, it's gonna be tough. So I'm sure some of you have seen some of the blogs or something. Maybe people are like, "F cancer," like, you know, no, probably not, right? You're not on the blogs, really. But there's sometimes a lot of negative energy around cancer, and I didn't want to have that. I wanted to kind of embrace the journey of it and learn from the experience every time I went. And also, I learned to flush it out of my system. Do you know what that means? Like, get it out? Yeah, just get it out of the system. So I use essential oils. I use certain supplements like chlorella, activated charcoal, lemon oil. There's an oil called zendocrine to flush the chemo out every time, because it's a rinse and repeat. So it's like rinse, repeat, and every time it gets consecutively harder and harder and harder, and then the hair doesn't fall out like right away. It kind of like is a gradual thing. And when you're in the shower, like you're like, oh, a big clump just came out. That's why some women just opt to like shave everything at once. Mine came out, but I didn't lose everything. I did not lose everything. I still kept it. So actually, I never really looked, quote unquote, like a cancer patient. However, I did have fun with wigs and hair extensions. So kind of like what you have, like the little bun, I would like put it up, you know, and then I would like stick a little hair, plop a little hair thing on myself. Or I'd put bandanas and stuff, but like you'd still see hair. You know what I mean? So I never lost all my hair. So that actually kept for me, and every woman is different, it just made me feel just a lot better about the whole situation. And I had fun with short hair. I had fun with different styles. I had like 4 different wigs. I had fun. I don't miss it, but I'm just saying it was not doom and gloom. You know what I mean? So after all the chemo, I then did the double mastectomy. You guys know what that is, right? A double mastectomy. And then there's an option to do a double mastectomy, implants, or you can do a reconstruction. Does anybody know what a deep reconstruction is? DEIP, deep reconstruction. It's essentially where they take your fat from your stomach or your butt, or right here, just somewhere where you have extra love, and they put it in your boobs. Yeah, so that's what a deep reconstruction is. And then another kind is where they take muscle, like your back muscle, and they put it in your boobs. But when I consulted with the surgeons, because I was a yoga teacher, one of my surgeons said that would be morbid. And I was like, you're right, that would be morbid. But I always knew going into it, like I did my research. I love research. Obviously, like I come from the world of education. So the more research that you do before, the more that you'll have direction. So I knew like I want the deep reconstruction. That really appealed to me because I didn't want a foreign body in my here. I didn't want implants because implants have a lot of side effects sometimes. And then as I shared about chemo also has side effects. So I don't know if you know this, but chemo can cause secondary cancers after you do chemo. So that's why it's really important to flush it out after chemo, every time you do it, and after you've had the whole chemo situation. So I'm constantly flushing things out. I'm doing I'm doing a coffee enema. Have you guys ever heard of coffee enemas? They're very beneficial for cleaning. Also, infrared saunas are very, very good for cleaning. So you just want to flush the system because do you know what the liver's main function is? Anybody know? It's for cleaning and detoxing the body. So you know when you're doing your laundry and you open up the laundry and there's all the lint, in that thing, that's essentially what the liver is. So it's there to catch all the toxins and everything like that. So basically, I did the chemo and then it was time for that and the double mastectomy. Then I did the double mastectomy, and I did it in 2 parts because normally they put everything all together. But because of the pandemic, a deep reconstruction is not considered essential. Do you know what I mean by that? Because there's essential and non-essential. This is more considered like plastic surgery. This was like get the cancer out. And what is it like for a woman to lose her boobs? That's like a whole other journey. Like if I told you tomorrow you're gonna lose your boobs. Like, can you imagine how you would feel? Right? So that's like a whole other journey. So I had a goodbye boobie party where all my friends got on a Zoom and we said goodbye to my boobies. And it was good. It was very therapeutic. I was very cathartic, and I cried, and it was lovely to have my friends there to support me. So I'm really a fan of people having support during this journey is so essential, because something like saying goodbye to your breast is so emotional. It's so emotional. So because of the pandemic, it was not essential surgery, so I had to wait. And so it was just like the waiting time to have the deep reconstruction. So then I had the deep reconstruction, and people ask a lot, okay, how is the recovery time? And it's intense. Like you have like they chop off your breast and they put something in there. It's called a tissue expander. And basically a tissue expander gets pumped. You can pump it up. Like you can pump it up and pump it up and pump it up until it's big. And do you know why they pump it up? To expand the tissue. That's why it's called a tissue expander. So they pumped it up. But some women, as you know, opt to completely not have expanders, right? They go complete. Have you guys seen that? Where it's like completely flat, and then they get cool tattoos like a tiger or something. I decided I did not want to go completely flat. I actually like having boobs, or the appearance of boobs. So I ended up opting for getting the deep and having the tissue expander. So every time after like I got the double mastectomy, I'd come into the office and they'd pump me up like boom boom boom, like boom 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 boom, until you get to the point where you're kind of at the place where it has expanded your tissues enough, and then you're ready for the deep. So the deep that I had is called a delayed deep reconstruction. It's delayed because why? Because they delayed it, right? They delayed it. But normally, well, not normally, but most times they put them all together, reconstruction and deep together. In my situation, I waited because of the pandemic. But the good thing is, it actually has better results when you do it this way. So I was freaked out. I was like, oh no, I have to go under the knife, like major surgery, anesthesia twice? Like, are you kidding me? And they're like, no, the results are better though. And I'm like, okay. And I was nervous because the actual recovery from this was, it was hard to like do the things, afterwards. But as a yoga teacher, I never stopped moving. So I would always make sure to get up and walk around. So my recovery was a lot faster than probably a lot of women who maybe don't go into it as healthy, which is why I love helping women now get healthy before they even go through this journey. So I stayed, again, also very positive through it, and that is really important because your cells feel your energy, and especially when you have cancer, cancer is a malfunction of the cells, so you don't want to create an inhospitable environment for those cancer cells. So you want to keep a positive energy, you want to eat foods that are not cancer causing, essentially carcinogenics or cancer causing, processed flour, processed sugar, alcohol, caffeine, anything that causes oxidative stress in the body. So I also, eliminated meat and dairy. I hadn't eliminated meat and dairy before the cancer diagnosis, but after diagnosis, I really, so you wanna make your body, you either feed disease or fight disease, right? There's 2 different directions you can go. And that's with anything in life. Cancer is inflammation, so why create an environment that's gonna cause more inflammation in the body? So I did the deep reconstruction, and there's like a huge giant, I'm not gonna show you my, down there, but I will show you that there is a giant scar. Do you guys see that? There's a huge scar that goes from here to here. So it's not a tummy tuck. People get very confused. This is not a tummy tuck. It's literally, they took my fat from my stomach, which I did have after having 2 kids. And they took tissue and they reconnected. So there was blood vessels in here. I mean, it's a major surgery. And they had to monitor it, and then you have drains. I had drains after the reconstruction and after the double mastectomy. Drains are basically, you look like an octopus. So you have octopus, raise your hand if you know what I'm talking, a drain. Okay, yeah, okay. So you have these drains and they're like sucking up the blood and stuff. And you have to like navigate your life with drains and, you know, just do your best. So I had those 2 times, and then my drains would get infected because obviously I'm not good at sitting still. So they would get infected, and then I'd have like horrible pain. So yeah, drains are always a pain. And so then I was done with the double mastectomy. I was done with the reconstruction, and I'm like, woohoo! And they're like, actually, you got it. After all that chemo, we actually discovered you have a different diagnosis. You're not HER2 negative, you're actually HER2 positive. So we have to do more chemotherapy. So you know how they ring the bell? There's not a doorbell. They ring a bell, they're like, woo, I'm done with chemo. And I got a chemo certificate. I literally got and everyone signed it like a degree. Like my Harvard degree, I had a chemo certificate. And then they're like, sorry, null and void, you actually have to go back. And I was like, great. And so I ended up doing not hair fallout, horrible chemo. It was immunotherapy. I think I did that in between the double mastectomy and the deep. And then I think I continued doing it. I did it for a really long time. I did immunotherapy, and it was tough in the sense like you're putting those toxins in your body. But again, rinse, repeat, let's move on, immunotherapy. And then that was over, and I was like, you know what? It was the height of the pandemic. I was like, I want to go to Florida. I want to go to Florida, and I want to escape. Raise your hand if you want to escape the winter. Yeah, it's like half this room. And I was like, I want to get out of here. And I told my husband, and we booked an Airbnb with our kids, because our kids were doing online learning. So I'm like, this is a great time, right? So we got like 3 different Airbnbs, and we were gonna go to Mexico. We were gonna do like all this stuff, right? I was done. I was like, woohoo, I got my new boobs. You know, life is good, right? And so we go, and I start, you know, I was teaching yoga online. And again, being aware of your body is so important on this journey. If you're not aware of your body, like, I don't even know how I would have found out that. I'll tell you what happened. So I was doing some yoga poses, and I started feeling like this pressure, you know, like I would bend over like this, and I started feeling this crazy like pressure in my head, and I was like, what is going on? So we ended up going to Miami, and I would just have these moments where I'd like go to the bathroom, and I'd sit on the toilet, and I'd feel like this shooting pain coming from right here. This is called the sacrum, all the way up to the top of my head. And I was like, what is going on? What is going on here? So it started getting worse. It started getting worse to the point where, like, I remember I had to like suck on ice cubes, and then there was like a jacuzzi where we were staying. I know, a jacuzzi, I know, it sounds really nice right now. Outdoor jacuzzi, and I remember I needed like the ice cubes to like, I don't know, just because I was so hot. Are you super tired? I'm sorry. Am I boring you? All right. I know it is. It's a tough time. But so I was in the jacuzzi, and I passed out in the jacuzzi, and I had this like glass, so I looked like an alcoholic, which is ironic because I've been sober for 18 years. And I was like, this woman was like shaming me. She's like, look at you falling asleep. Ah! And I was like, oh! And I got out of the jacuzzi, and I couldn't walk. I looked like a straight up alcoholic, which again is like so frightening to me, you know? And then I was like dropping my kids off at like they were learning how to play tennis, and I ran back to our apartment, and I like realized I couldn't, there's something wrong with my side. Like I couldn't run properly. I was like, what the hell's happening to me? I was like screaming, like, oh my gosh, like my life, I can't live this way. And so I went to see acupuncturists. I used every oil you can imagine. I went to a chiropractor, and I would have like moderate relief, and then so you know what happened? You know what turned out? What happened? It turned out that I ended up passing out and I couldn't eat anymore. And it turned out, anybody want to guess what happened? Like a wild guess. No? Give up? It turned out the breast cancer had traveled into my brain, and it lodged itself in my brain, in my cerebellum. And cerebellum, who knows what cerebellum is for? It's coordination. It's for coordination and movement. So it was messing with my coordination and movement. And this can happen. This can happen. Breast cancer can travel. So it's actually with stage 4 metastasized breast cancer that traveled into my brain and lodged itself there and was like, woohoo, you know, and within 2 weeks it could have killed me. For real. That alone could kill somebody. So I rushed back to Boston because I was in Miami, and you want to be in Boston when you have stage 4 metastatic brain cancer. So I came to Beth Israel, and I met this like unbelievable neurosurgeon who just made me feel so comfortable. That's why bedside manners, if any of you guys do become doctors, please have good bedside manners. Just be like compassionate. He's like the most compassionate, loving person. Just like even thinking about him makes me get emotional. And he was just so calming, you know, and I think that's what someone needs when they're going through like so much trauma. It's just they need like calm, peaceful energy. And so he just was so calm and peaceful, and it just made me like, even getting on that plane going from Miami, like we had to sign ourselves out of the hospital because it was so it was such a risk to travel with that kind of tumor. You know, I was put on steroids, and I was just so grateful that I made that. And that was exactly this time last year, guys. Like exactly this time last year that I was diagnosed with that stage 4. And they did, thank you God, they got the tumor out. It was like a 7-hour surgery. And I was sitting up. If you guys, I'm gonna make all of you guys follow me on Instagram. But when you do see it, I do have pictures of that. I have pictures of the tumor, and I was sitting up, and you know, it was just a very, very involved surgery. And it was like one of those things where I had to trust in the universe, like everything was gonna be okay. Cause like going into something like that, you just have no idea. You know, you have no idea if you're gonna make it, if you're gonna die, or whatever. You're just like, okay, you have to be carried in that moment. You really have to be carried. And so after the brain surgery, you know, I had to learn how to rebalance on my left side because of the way the cerebellum. So I was sent to rehab, and it took a while to get to rehab. So I was in the hospital for a while, and I had I was like a little old lady. They gave you like a walker to go to the bathroom. And then I went to rehab, and in rehab, they teach you how to like move again. And by the end that week, I was like doing yoga poses and teaching them how to do yoga poses. I mean, the body is unbelievable. Like when your body is already in a good state, like you can retrain it really fast. And of course it wasn't perfect. Like I had to learn, you know, now I teach like 2 to 3 times a week, and like the coordination is back, but it took a while. It took a couple months to like get back to that place. And then I did radiation, which again, unbelievable, like the kind of technology we have now that there's this device called the cyber knife. Has anybody heard of the cyber knife? Why would you hear about it? But it's like $1 million machine that has been donated. It was like donated by somebody to Beth Israel, and I'm sure some other cancer hospitals, but it's this like super targeted radiation. So back in the day, they used to do whole brain radiation where they just like nuke your whole brain, which does not have doesn't have ideal results. But now they can like do a very like targeted therapy of radiation to target the cells around the incision. So when they take out the tumor, they want to make sure that the rest of the area is taken care of. And so essentially that's what radiation is. Does radiation have side effects? Yes. I mean, did I definitely have like brain fog after it? Yes. Did it sometimes like feel like pressure in my head? Yes. Another thing was my incision, and this actually happens frequently, that my incision got infected in the hospital. So it got infected, and so I had also a staph infection in my brain, in my body at the time. So I was also having to go back to the hospital and be on tons of drugs for infection. And so I was also using my oils and everything, but that was a hard time because I just was done. I was done with being in hospitals. I was so done. And then I just wanted them to just patch this up and call it a day. So they had to shave, actually. They shaved like this whole side. So with the brain surgery, they opened up this whole back and opened it up and then took out a piece of the skull. They took out a piece of skull and then took out the tumor. But I still had my hair that was growing back from the post-chemo. But when I had to do a shunt. Does anybody know what a shunt is? Yeah, a shunt is where they put a tube into your head and then it drains down. And so essentially, they had to put that in for the infection, to drain the cerebral spinal fluid, the CSF. So that's when they had to shave my hair. And I was like, oh man, I shaved my hair with a cold cap. And now they have to shave it, but I looked really badass. I looked like a punk rocker. Do you guys even know what that is? A punk rocker? Okay, all right, cool, because I'm like dating myself here. I looked really hardcore. Again, you can check out my Instagram. So I had this like mohawk, and I still kind of kept it because I liked it. So I kept this part, but I kind of grew this part in. But you can see this is kind of like where it was all shaved off. And then, oh my God, like, wow, I survived that. And I was like, I want to go back to Miami, and I still want to go to Mexico. So we went. I got the green light. I was like, thank God. My husband and I fought a lot about that. He's like, you're insane. And my husband, you have to have like a supportive family member. So my husband was amazing through it all. My friends were amazing through it all. I had a great support system through my husband's family. So that is, I can't underestimate how powerful that was. But he was just like, no. And I was like, yes. Because I needed something to look forward to. And that's so important as a cancer patient or whatever, to have something to look forward to. Whether it's a birthday party or going on a trip, like you need something, or else like just being in a hospital isn't gonna cut it. So Miami was that place for me. Mexico was that place. And Mexico wasn't just to go to Mexico and eat tortillas or whatever. It was really to go with my company, the holistic health company, the essential oil company, and learn about that and other people, whatever, building connections. So it ended up that we did end up driving going back to Miami and living there for another month and a half, and then going to Mexico. So I did what I wanted to do, and I started doing yoga, and things were healing. And wow, that brings me to like less than 6 months ago, and I guess in September. Yeah, so we came back in the summer, and since then I've been I'm helping other people learn about the journey of cancer, and that you don't have to be a victim in a sense. And there's this whole cancer warrior thing, right? The cancer warrior. For me, that feels like you're beating something up and you're like slaying it. It's very masculine. I don't mean to offend my men here, but I'm a woman and I'm a very feminine woman, and I just felt like the way that I did cancer was like a goddess, And that's why I started my brand, which is essentially helping other women, and it's Breast Cancer Goddess. And so I'm breastcancergoddess.com, and my Instagram now is Breast Cancer Goddess, although I might change it back to Voracious Healing. But this is really my passion now, to help other women. I mean, I was helping people before with health and wellness, but now going through this crazy journey, which has been so crazy, I mean, it doesn't end, you know, just because I had my ovaries out like 2 months ago. Like, they took out my ovaries. That also, this like moving your boobs. Like, oh my God, you took my breasts, now you're gonna take my ovaries? Like, okay, like I don't think I want to have more children, but I don't want someone to like force me to tell me that. Like, the window was open and now it's like shut with like bolts, you know? They took my ovaries and there was, the risk was too high, and that's what it was. I get scans like every 2 months to make sure there's just nothing growing back, and you make your body very inhospitable to cancer. So you don't eat the things that, you know, you read about what causes cancer: trauma, stress, carcinogenics, alcohol. You know, there's a whole list out there, and you just make sure you keep your body super healthy. You keep your mind really positive. You don't consider yourself, I don't consider myself a victim. I consider myself, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to have gone through it and learned. It's like a teacher. It's like a very scary teacher at times, but it's a teacher nonetheless, and it's a very powerful experience. So I'm very grateful for the journey, especially now because there's so much technology. Before, this diagnosis that I had would have been a death sentence. I would have died. You know, they didn't have this kind of targeted therapy with the MRI, and also knowing about the genetic cancer being Jewish. And the last thing I'll say is, like, there's a reason why Jews have, does anybody know why Ashkenazi Jews have a predominant, oh my gosh, the word would come to me.
Predisposition.
What's that?
Predisposition.
Thank you. Predisposition for BRCA1, BRCA2 genetic cancer. Does anybody have any idea? Anyone who, raise your hand if you're Jewish in here. Okay. So this is actually good to know. So during the Crusades, there was an edict to kill all the Jews. Like, so there was the Holocaust. We all know about the Holocaust, but there is also the Crusades. And it was basically saying, like, kill all the Jews, because you should kill all the Jews. And so all the Jews at that time a lot of them were just decimated, like whole towns, just overnight, like boom, killed. To the point where there was there were no more than 350 reproducing women at one time. 350 that's almost completely decimating the whole population. And so what happens when there's a lack of genetic diversity? Disease, right? Which is why if you're an Orthodox, especially if you're an Orthodox Jew, a lot of Orthodox Jews get tested before they even get married now at this point. Or if you're Ashkenazi, they get tested. So if you're an Ashkenazi Jew and you might marry an Ashkenazi Jew, get tested, because you want to make sure you're not breeding disease, right? I'm actually Ashkenazi and Sephardic. Sephardic is a Spanish amalgamation, but apparently at the time it didn't really matter if you were Sephardic or Ashkenazi. So that's why there's a genetic cancer, because of basically lack of genetic diversity. The key to human evolution is actually genetic diversity. So I am extremely grateful to share my story. I will open it up to you guys, and thank you so much for doing what you're doing with Relay for Life and the American Cancer Society, and the fact that you are getting out of your own head to learn about this stuff is really unbelievable. But now you all have to take out your phones right now and follow me on Instagram, or I'm gonna leave right now, and I'm not gonna say goodbye. So it's breastcancergoddess.com, breastcancergoddess.com. And it might switch back to Voracious Healing, but right now it's breastcancergoddess.com. I just don't want to alienate some of my other clients who don't necessarily have breast cancer. But I also think Breast Cancer Goddess is great. I mean, sorry, not com, but on Instagram. So, you guys good? You got it? Yeah. All right, cool. So now I'll open it up to some questions, because you guys might have some